Hi guys, welcome to my channel Watch Lookout, where I am always on the lookout for another watch to add to my collection. And this is a continuing series of my State of the Collection. Today I'm featuring 3 watches by the watchmaker Aragon from the United States. And a quick wristwatch check reveals that I am wearing my steel dive. I want to say it's the SD 1992. Hope I got that right. Obvious homage. Nice big date window there. Anyway, a watch I haven't worn all too often, but that's primarily because I've been wearing this watch a lot around the house. Occasionally at work, but mostly around the house. So let's go ahead and start with the first Aragon watch that I ever bought, and that is this one, the DIVEMASTER GMT Titanium. Now, anybody who knows anything about Aragon knows that they tend to make very large watches. And indeed, this was the largest watch in my collection at 50 millimeter case diameter. But it wears quite nicely on my 7.5-inch wrist, and I really can't complain because I think it's executed really well. So this is a grade 2 titanium case, and it's satin finish all around. It has this beautiful turquoise dial, which is also a sunburst effect. Not quite Tiffany, not quite robin's egg, but certainly more turquoise. This is a 50 millimeter case size with 13.6 millimeter case height. It does have a 58 millimeter lug to lug, but as you have these silicone straps on here, it does approach nearly 65 millimeters when you include this extra little bit of silicone there that sort of comes out on the end. It is 24 millimeter lug width, and the total weight is 117 grams. However, now I have added the larger south side strap that they included when I purchased this, so it might be a couple grams more than the 117 grams. It does feature an SII NH34 GMT movement inside. The case back indicates it's an SII movement. The difference is that's a Seiko Instruments International movement, whereas most of the NH movements that we see across different brands throughout the world are actually TMI movements, so they're manufactured in China. TMI is owned by Seiko, but they used to be their own Hong Kong entity, and in fact their offices are still in Hong Kong. Basically, they're just subcontracted to manufacture the Seiko movements, but it's obviously Chinese manufacturing. And it is a 24 jewel movement, in case anybody cares. I think I paid $149 for this, which is a steal, because I think now it's $209 on Aragon's website. I love the turquoise dial. I really do. It has great lume, as we come to expect from Aragon watches. Has amazing legibility. There is a lumed, obviously the indices on the bezel are lumed. It's 120 click unidirectional, if I didn't already say that. And this is a sapphire bezel insert. And we've got 2 colors. We've got a blue lume and we've got a green lume. Those are applied indices. And I mean, everything really is quite ample when it comes to the luminescence. The crown is smooth to operate, given the fact that it is titanium. That's usually a big complaint. What does it say here if we can get it to focus? So you can see there at the bottom, just indicates obviously it's water resistance, the fact that it's professional, quote unquote, and that it's titanium. 200 meters of water resistance, in case anybody's unable to read. Quite a large crown that does have the company logo etched in. And that's one of my chief complaints, actually, is the knurling of this crown. I'll get into that a little bit later. Let's see, anything else that I might have missed on this? Oh, it is a sapphire crystal, just like a sapphire bezel insert. You know, the glass material of the exhibition case back, I really don't know if that's just mineral crystal or sapphire, probably mineral. I don't have a diamond tester here, so I don't really know. This is a really comfortable watch to wear. You know, I put the larger south side strap on. The regular strap fit me okay, but this gets into one of my niggles about this watch, and that is that the crown digs in to the back of my hand, and the knurling is a little bit sharper than would be my desire. And so consequently throughout the day, it's basically just irritating the skin. It's basically a skin irritant. It looks cool, but it doesn't feel that way. And the thing is that it seems like Wing understood that he needed a skinnier crown here, right? Because of the size of the case, but it hasn't achieved the effect of not irritating the back of your hand. You know, the thing is when you buy an Aragon watch, you don't hide it under the sleeve or cuff of your shirt, right? It's out there on full display, if for no other reason, just because of its dimensions and its case height quite often. And so, you know, if you're wearing it with a suit, as I frequently do, then of course you have to push the watch forward onto you know, further up your wrist to the back of your hand so that you're able to not have it fight with the cuff of your shirt. But of course, the downside of that is that the crown then unnaturally digs in to the top of your hand. So instead of wearing it back here as normal, right, you have to wear it a little further forward. And then, of course, anytime you bend your hand, the knurling of that crown is digging right in. So while it is quite a large crown and a skinny crown, you know, if the finishing was just different on the crown, I think it would be a 100% comfortable wear. But other than that, I really love the watch. I mean, it is a joy to own. I'm really stoked about it. All right, so let's move on now. The second Aragon that I purchased is also a DIVEMASTER, but this one is the DIVEMASTER 4 EVO. I realize everything is off center. Now, I just received this less than 2 months ago. It hasn't been that long. And this is 316 stainless steel, and it is a 48 millimeter case diameter. However, it's actually wears like a 50 because there is a 1 millimeter overlap on either side because of the bezel. So the bezel is properly at 50 millimeters and the case itself 48. And of course, as you can see here, the bezel is quite wide. That is a ceramic bezel insert, and there's a lot of it. So the effect is that you have this ginormous dial, but it already is a ginormous watch. Now, this one is satin finished all over, just like the titanium version that I have. And 1 second here. So it's a 48 millimeter case diameter, as I said, 15 millimeter case height, and a 55 millimeter lug to lug. But as it has male end links, it's about 60 millimeters. So, you know, it's not for the timid, right, or demure. 24 millimeter lug width and a whopping 285 grams. So it's the heaviest watch that I own in my collection. I've got probably 4 or 5 watches that are in the plus 200 gram category. That's what it looks like on my 7.5 inch wrist. It's quite a big boy. It's riding a little bit forward there, but here we can sort of see it. If it'll focus. It's not going to focus. All right, so let's get into it a little more. What else do we have here? It is a NH35 movement. And again, as indicated on the exhibition case back, it is an SII NH35 movement, 24 joules. It does feature a 120 click unidirectional bezel. This DIVEMASTER, despite being GMT, is also 120 clicks, as I said earlier. And, that's because it's a DIVEMASTER, right? So you're not going to get a 24 click bidirectional bezel on a GMT when it's designed for diving, probably more than designed for a second time zone. I notice it's one of these things I see on different watches that I have that are advertised as 120 click bezels. Very often they're just 90 clicks. I don't know if anybody bothers to count, but I certainly do. And so that's kind of a funny thing that they'll advertise that they have a 120 click bezel, but in fact they just have 90 clicks. It's just an interesting thing I noticed. Now, the big selling point and why I bought this watch is because it does have a loomed dial, and we're going to see that later on. But also the fact that the applied indices are in and of themselves three-dimensional blocks of lume. But they are not actually three-dimensional blocks of lume. That's kind of a misnomer that people probably think that they're getting like 100 layers of superluminova or something that dries into a block, but that's not what it is at all. There's a company called Lumicore, which actually makes these three-dimensional blocks, and then they put the lume inside during the casting process. So they're able to cast any kind of shape that you want, and then they just put luminova inside. And in this case, I think the company offers 3 different ranges of Swiss superluminova. Well, the effect you would imagine, as this is Aragon, is that it's outstanding luminescence. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's see. So, an interesting thing about this bezel is that it is ceramic, and most, I think, of us who have ceramic bezels expect that the indices are engraved, or that in the casting or molding process of the ceramic, obviously it's going to be stamped into the case or engraved or embossed, but that's not the case here. This appears to be just painted onto a flat ceramic disc. So I'll be interested to see how durable that luminescence is over the life of ownership of this watch, because I expect that'll probably be the first thing that flakes off if it does. It's also possible that they have filled the bezel indices with lume up to the top and then finished it down, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels like this is just a flat ceramic disc, and that they have simply silk screened or painted onto the ceramic surface the luminescence. That's interesting. I didn't expect that. One thing that's really good is that this bracelet is a true 3-link bracelet. It's not just one piece that looks like 3. It is fully articulated, as you can see there. And another cool thing about it is that they didn't just go with a sort of oyster style or a standard 3-link style, because these outside links here are these parallelograms. You see there, it's really cool, that sort of angled approach that they did there. It is a twin push button release deployant clasp with a fold over safety clasp, milled lower, and a stamped upper. Overall, it's a fairly good execution. I hate crowns at the 4 o'clock, as viewers to my channel will note, but as I just complained about the problems that I had with the DIVEMASTER at 50 millimeters, with the crown, this is actually a godsend that the crown is at the 4 o'clock position, because again, as I have to wear this watch forward up my wrist when I wear long sleeve business shirts, that crown being at the 4 o'clock then doesn't dig into the back of my hand. And even though that looks quite sharp and edgy and jagged, this crown, It's actually not. It's done really, really well. And all of these are screw down crowns, all of these Aragons that I have. And this one seems to turn for an infinite amount of time. So that's a high polish and really smooth edges. So it looks like it would irritate the hell out of your skin, but it's really done super well. That is a loomed crown, by the way. And that's kind of a cool little distinction because it juxtaposes the satin finishing of the case, this high polished crown, and it also complements the fact that the bezel is also high polished. So that's a really nice touch. One of the things I really like about this is that the white dial is not glossy. It's a matte finish. I think it just looks more like understated and mature. Obviously keeps down with the glare of the sapphire crystal. And I really love the blue effect of these hands and the indices. I don't know if it's been a heat tempered blue or if it's just like a process, that they might have done with the hands. But the shape of the hands is nice. The legibility is nice. I love that blue effect. I think it looks really nice. And despite the fact that it's a heavy watch, it's still fairly comfortable for me. Let's see, any more likes? I do like the 3D Lume effect. Let's see if I can just... I love the way those indices look. Change the zoom settings on my camera, and so I'm just not sure if that has affected my autofocus. You see there, that's kind of a cool effect, right? But it does get to the heart of the major dislike I have about this watch. I bought it because it's a Lume dial. Aragon has a reputation for going the full 10 yards in terms of Lume, but that's my number one complaint, the Lume on this watch. If you had to guess, of the three areas of this watch that have Lume application, the bezel, the dial itself, and the indices and hands, which would you guess is the brightest? Well, I can tell you, whatever your guess is, the opposite is true. The brightest luminescence on this watch is or are the bezel indices. That is far and away the brightest. The 3D Lumicore is a joke. This is a major selling point of this watch, and it is probably its biggest deficit. Those applied indices of what I can only imagine are Lumicore, which is the name of the company that produces this type of material, they're not that bright. And so I suspect that Wing probably opted for the lowest of the three grades of Swiss Superluminova that the company offers in the material. And that's a big disappointment because it's letting this watch down. It should be as bright as a torch, and sadly it's not. And the major disappointment is that as I wear it through the night, in the middle of the night, early the next morning when I awake, the dial itself is still loomed. It is. Kudos for the dial. But here's the problem. You can't see the hands. You cannot see what the time is in the middle of the night. The dial's lit up really well, but you cannot find the hands anywhere. So it's basically just a big white blob in the dark. And that's a big disappointment. And that Lumicore, the indices, they're a joke. Like I said, in 5 minutes time, 10 minutes time, they are, well, right from as I charge it, they're the dimmest thing on the dial. And we'll see that a little bit later here. So that's very disappointing because they should be the brightest thing on the dial. And as I said, it's not even the dial that's the brightest luminescence. It's the paint on the bezel itself. So that is a disappointment. As I said, you buy a watch and you have a reason for it, and then you get it and it doesn't quite deliver. But that's fine. It just means you gotta purchase another watch and add that to your collection. All right, and so the third and most recent acquisition, probably had this less than a month now, is the brand new chronograph from Aragon called the Caprice. I think it's actually called the Caprice 8040.N, and that refers to the Swiss Ronde movement inside. So this watch is available now for just $111. It's still its introductory price. I guess it says it'll go up north of $200 after the sale's over. That remains to be seen. It came on a silicone bracelet, and I promptly swapped it out to this NATO strap, and I'll discuss that a little bit later. So it is a chronograph, but it's a little more unique than just a standard chronograph, because there at the 12 o'clock, we have a days of the week indicator, and of course at the 6 o'clock we have a twin window date register. That's pretty nice. You can see there at the 6 o'clock the small seconds as well, and over here at about the 2:30 position is a 1/10 of a second register, and then a 30-minute elapsed time register over there at the 9:30 position. This is a really nice watch for the price. Satin finishing, 316 stainless steel, screw down crown just like the other two. I really love the pushers on this because it's sort of this quintessential stopwatch kind of pusher thing. So they're obviously not screw down, but I don't think that's a big deal. I certainly haven't accidentally activated them in the time that I've worn it. I really like this colorway, but you know, I couldn't decide between this one and the champagne colorway that they have. They have 4 colorways, blue, green, this sort of gunmetal gray, and a champagne. And you know, I like them both so much, but I am more of a gray silver kind of guy. And again, I may wind up getting that champagne down the road. It just depends. So this is a 44. This is my smallest Aragon at 44 millimeter case diameter, 16 millimeter case height, so it's bigger than the other two. It does have a 48 millimeter lug to lug, and I imagine you'd probably have to add at least another 5 or 7 millimeters with the silicone strap on, because it's the same silicone strap as on my turquoise DIVEMASTER, which adds 7 millimeters to your lug to lug. And so probably around 55 millimeters if you have that strap on. And it's 145-ish grams. Again, that's with the silicone strap. This does feature just a K1 hardened mineral crystal. I think for the price point, that's probably why. But of course, I don't know. I wasn't there during the development process. So it is just a mineral crystal, although it is hardened. And as I said, it does have a Swiss Ronde movement. And there is an exhibition case back, 13 jewel movement, by the way, fully serviceable movement. I'm going to go ahead and put it on my wrist so you can see it before I remove the strap. Okay, so as I mentioned, and I'll actuate the stopwatch here, as I mentioned, it does have this 1/10 of a second register. Of course, I have the time, shows that it's not, there we go. So that 1/10 of a second register sweeps around for 30 seconds before it stops. And the chronograph second counter is the large second hand that's going around the dial now, which hacks as it is a quartz movement. And as I said, it also features up to 30 minutes of elapsed time. Now, after 30 seconds, that 1/10 of a second subdial will stop, but it will continue registering or recording the 1/10 of a seconds that have elapsed, so that when you stop or pause the chronograph, the hand will advance to the position. There you go. You see there, it's not at the 12 o'clock position there. So it does let you record what the 1/10 of a second was, even if it's not animated, you know, as it's going around. So I really like it. It's one of the unique chronographs of my collection. And now let's see the case back. Excuse me, I've been sick for weeks this winter, and my cough has almost gone away. So there you go. That gives you a glimpse of the Ronda 8040.N movement. Not much to see there, but you can see some of the jewels. And it's this nice color brass. Anyway, it's a really great value for the money. There's no doubt about it. Ordinarily, I dislike hands like this, as they're quite boring. But in this case, I think the execution is done really well. I actually really do like the hand set on that. I think they look just great. And they're super bright, high contrast against that sunburst gray background. And I think, they've really, I don't even mind any of the deficiencies that I might have about the watch, because I think for the price and for what you get, it's a really great value proposition. So, as I said, of my likes, I still don't know if I should have gotten the champagne dial or not. They both look great, though. What I really do like is that the dial layout is really great. For all the information that's on there and the amount of space they have to work with, they've done a really good job. You'll notice that as it is a fixed bezel, with most chronographs they are, the tachymeter scale is above the rehaut, which is a really nice touch, you see, to use that under the crystal. What else I like is that the rehaut itself is angled, right? And so the minute track is on the rehaut, and then what they've done is they've carved out around the rehaut so that the applied indices don't crowd the dial. You see, so they've just notched out those sections, and then they're able to push the indices out further towards the perimeter of the dial. It's a really good execution. I love that. And I love that twin window date display. So I think most of us probably think, okay, so there's two wheels side by side. One's responsible for the 0, the 1, the 2, the 3 digit, and the other wheel's responsible for the numbers 0 through 9. But in actual fact, it's two overlapping date wheels, right? And they've just ingeniously cut out the second date window, and then the way that they've painted the numbers on so that when it orients at the bottom position, that they stand upright. It's really genius if you look at the schematics of this movement, which I have. It's really a neat execution. So it's just overlapping sort of sandwich date windows. And it's a good bit of ingenuity there. I really like the execution of this, frankly. So my dislikes, again, Aragon, it's the Lume. The Lume is not great, but it's not terrible. One thing about the hands, you see, is that they're solid hands. There's no cutout there where the Lume is applied, so it's probably just a layer or so of Lume painted onto those flat metal hands. And I think that's probably a reason why it is not as bright as it could be. I mean, one thing is that each of the hands of the chronograph are themselves lumed, and so that's a nice touch. And the indices themselves are quite small. So, I mean, there's only so much lume you could apply to those skinny indices, and you can see throughout the top part of the north part of the dial, the indices are quite small, you see, so there's really not a whole lot they could have done there. It is a strong green lume, but it's just not enough. This lumed crown, though, is a torch, and I've taken some photographs where you can see the back of my hand illuminated in the night. It is a proper torch. And this looks really good on camera. Like when I first did the unboxing, the Lume looked great, but it looked great on camera. In real life, it was dimmer and a bit of a disappointment considering that this is Aragon. I would happily pay the extra $15 or $20 for, a better Lume and sapphire crystal, but for the introductory price, I really can't I can't complain about that. I did put the this NATO strap on because the silicone strap was too small. And whereas I love the fact that the DIVEMASTER GMT titanium came with a larger south side strap as part of the purchase price, I think the introductory price for this watch made it prohibitive to add a larger south side strap. And it's kind of comical because, you know, I'm a very average size man, and yet I'm on the last hole of that silicone strap. So I had to take that off and put this NATO on instead. And so it would be nice to see a larger south side strap included with your purchase of this watch. It would be a smart touch. And I think some people wouldn't mind paying a few dollars more for it, considering. Lastly, a niggle that I have about this is not Aragon's fault, it's Rhonda's fault. The only way to adjust the date on the 8040.N, the only way to adjust the day of the week, pardon me, is that you have to pull it all the way out to the time setting position, and then you just have to turn it until it advances to the next day. And God help you if you're 6 days away from whatever the day of the week is, because that's the only way to set the day on this watch. And, you know, it seems to me a smart way to do that would be just the opposite direction of the date setting function. But of course, I'm not a watchmaker or an engineer. So I don't know how complicated that would be, particularly as this watch is a quartz. But anyway, that is a disappointment because, yeah, you'd just be sitting here for an interminable amount of time going through as many days as it takes, you know, 2 sweeps for every day, continuously doing this thing until it gets to the proper day of the week. So that is a weird little quirk of this watch that I would say. My summation is, for the price, you know, you really can't beat Aragon for what they have. You know, Wing has done a pretty good job of providing us with the things that we demand as watch collectors. You know, he sort of has all the bells and whistles: the sapphire crystal, the exhibition case back, the materials that we want to see, the luminescence that we want to see, the automatic movements. You know, I mean, he really is trying to deliver what we want for the price. I would say that there's probably 2 or 3 other Aragons that I want, and the price of Aragon is quite reasonable. Sadly, I live in a country where the government has imposed a low dollar limit for imports. So there's, like, you know, the Superjet 44 millimeter with the DLC treatment and the mother of pearl dial. I want that desperately, but it's $19 above the import limit here. And there's also that new watch, the DF40. Any one of those DF40 iterations I would love to add to my collection, but again, it's like $20 above what the limit is here in my country to be able to purchase. So that does irritate me, but that's not Aragon's fault. Maybe they'll put on a sale that knocks 20 bucks off and I'll be able to get it. I would say one thing, though, about the designs, though. You know, they are a bit brutalist, to borrow an architectural term. The cases have a somewhat simplistic design. It's utilitarian, so I don't fault that. But I would like to see a little more savoir-faire as it relates to the case design, and particularly the finishing. It would be nice to have some high-polished edges, some chamfered edges that add some contrast to the satin finishing. It's certainly a possibility, certainly something that could be done. But at the end of the day, it's not my watch company, you know, so it's not really for me to say other than to just weigh in an opinion of. All right, guys, thanks for sticking around for the duration of this 3-piece Aragon collection. I have many more watches in my collection that I have yet to film videos for. Oh, you know what? I forgot to do a lume shot. So let's quickly do a little lume comparison. This video is going to be noticeably longer. We're going into our Justin Hawkins vocal booth. Let me just see if I can get them all. You can already see the one is glowing because it is daytime. And just bear with me a second here because I got to charge him up. All right, so not sure how that looks from the camera angle because I don't have this exactly worked out yet how I want to do this the best. Go ahead and close up shop in here. So starting with the titanium DIVEMASTER GMT, which has a lume bezel. I think it's probably my favorite in terms of the amount of lume. It's really well done. Move on to the second one, which is the DIVEMASTER 4 EVO, the lumed dial, and the LumeCore 3D indices. And we'll just see here on camera if we can see how that works. I'm going to lift this up. Yeah, so, you can clearly see the indices, no doubt about it. And there is a nice contrast on camera here. And the hands do look quite bright, but over time, it's merely the blue of the dial that's visible after a few hours. The hands themselves, the LumeCore indices, and I think probably the bezel insert, basically impossible to see, which is a disappointment. And then last but not least, let's get a look at our Caprice. Should probably also show that lumed crown of the EVO. You can see that there. And then, of course, the lumed crown of the Caprice chronograph. And I'll show the dial here now. Sorry, this is pretty hokey how I'm doing it. All right, so yeah, again, this is one of those things where it looks super bright on camera, but in real life, it is not. It is super dim. Look at that crown, though. Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, it's adequate. It's certainly better than Pagani design, but this is not up to snuff. It's not up to Aragon standard, insofar as I'm concerned. And it's certainly nothing like the other two, right? If we do a little gradient comparison there. See if I can get it to cooperate. Yeah, I can't, of course. There you go. Brightest, mid-tier, lower tier. But again, in actual fact, the DIVEMASTER Titanium has the brightest lume. It's just that on camera, you don't really see that. And I think the degree of lume that is present in the dial, it creates a bit of a deception about how bright the DIVEMASTER Titanium's lume is as compared to the EVO. All right, guys, so now this is the end. Thanks for coming out in this long state of the collection of my Aragons. I will have the holiday this week, so probably film a few more videos and try and knock out this state of the collection bit. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more content in the watch domain. Cheers, everybody.